my name is Megan. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be going through the first of 3 StoryGraph challenges for 2023. The first one is the Onboarding challenge, which is essentially a challenge that is utilized to explore the different features of StoryGraph. The second one is the genre challenge, which is technically based around genres but has a little bit more specification. For example, the first prompt is contemporary or literary fiction with disability prep. And then the third challenge is Reads the World, which is based around reading from 10 different countries within the world. And I am planning on talking about the genre and the Reads the World challenge later this week, but today we're going to be going through the Onboarding challenge. The first prompt is to read a book longer than the longest book that you read in 2022. And the longest book that I read in 2022, according to StoryGraph, is How Not to Die by Michael Greger, which is 562 pages. This is a little cheating in the fact that the How Not to Die book is so long because it has so many references in it. So that adds to the page count immensely. But it was still a very long book and I still read it and really enjoyed it. So I'm going to count it as my longest book that I'm reading. And while we're talking about How Not to Die, if you haven't read it, I highly recommend doing so. It is a very powerful book about taking your health into your own hands through diet. And it talks about the major causes of death and how diet can be used to help with controlling those major causes of death, and different studies that have been done about that and haven't made the light of day because a lot of times they're not commercially viable in the sense of like people aren't promoting broccoli or blueberries or whatever for monetary gain in the same way that they're promoting these different medications and things like that. So this book talks about that, and then it also talks about after all of this research has been done on these major causes of death, what the optimum human diet is according to Michael Greger. And he has come up with what he calls the daily dozen, which are 12 things he thinks you should get into your diet on a daily basis in order to be as healthy as possible. So I really enjoyed that book, and I thought it was very well written and very funny and very interesting and very well researched. And so my longer book is How Not to Diet by Michael Greger, which is 608 pages. Once again, it has a ton of references that adds to that page count, but I think it still counts. And the concept of this book is specifically about weight and obesity and weight gain and how to manage and maintain an optimum weight by utilizing diet and eating in a way that is satiating but also fulfilling for your body's needs. So How Not to Diet goes through all of these tips and tricks for how to manage weight, both with food and then also with different techniques in terms of when to eat and how to eat and how to utilize water and how to utilize sleeping and things like that to best manage your diet and your weight. And it is based once again on tons and tons of really good research, and I am very excited to finish reading this book. I have started it already in January, and I am really looking forward to it. The reason that I used this book specifically was because I have already started it, but I should be reading way more than just this one book that is longer than my 2022 longest book based on the TBRs that I have set up for the year. But this should be one of the first of the year that is longer than How Not to Die. The second one is Read a Book from the Community page. This could be either the general community page or specifically your community of friends, and I decided to do the general community page, and so I found the book called Some Places More Than Others by Renee Watson, which is a middle grade based around a young girl, and she goes and visits Harlem, New York with her father, and has high expectations about discovering all of these lofty things about her past and who she is, and thinks it's going to be just like the grandest adventure, and ends up discovering that things are a lot harder than she was expecting, and it's busier and noisier and all of these things than she was planning on. But it sounds like she still ends up getting a ton out of the experience, and I feel like that's a metaphor for life in terms of like things don't always go the way that you plan, but that doesn't mean that they don't go well. And then the third one is Read a Book from StoryGraph's recommendations. And for this, I had The Widow of Pale Harbor by Hester Fox, which is a mystery historical fiction that is based around a woman who lives in a creepy old castle and is considered by the surrounding townfolk to be a witch, and they think that she's causing all of these terrible things to happen in the town. So when people start showing up, I think dead, but these things start happening that are like Edgar Allan Poe style crimes around town, and she is blamed for them, but I'm assuming that it wouldn't be much of a mystery if she was actually to blame, so I'm guessing that somebody else is responsible, and we discover that in the course of the story. The fourth prompt is read from a book from the first 10 books on your TBR, which for this I'm going to be reading Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Machado, which is a short story collection about feminism and the human experience, specifically for women. And it is, I think, written in this really fantastical, really unique style. I expect that from the author, having read In the Dream House by Carmen Machado. And when I read In the Dream House, I enjoyed it, but I feel like there were certain things that I missed doing it on audio. So I would like to go back and reread that book, her second book on physical. And so I'm going to read this one on physical so that I don't miss things like I did with the other book I've read by this author. The fifth prompt is to read a book in your least read format, which for me is ebook. And the book I have chosen for this is the first book that I am completely reading in 2023 that is in ebook format, and that is The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, which would also count for the longest book prompt, but I was reading it on ebook, so I decided to count it for this prompt. And this is the first book in the Wheel of Time series. So the Wheel of Time series is based around some sort of concept that the world like keeps repeating itself over and over and over again as long as the Wheel of Time spins, and there's like a dark one and a savior and all of these things. And I don't know how many of those things are like true and coming to fruition versus like tales that are told in this world, but I am interested to see what is all of the hype, because the Wheel of Time is a series that is iconic, and it is a 14-book series that was started by Robert Jordan originally as a trilogy and then was finished posthumously by Brandon Sanderson. And so it's like a joint work because Robert Jordan had notes on what he wanted to happen, and then Brandon Sanderson actually did the writing. So I am very interested to read this series. And I am buddy reading this one with Samantha Barth over at Books by Barth, which I am so grateful for, because I don't know that I would be able to keep myself going through this book. I don't read a ton of physical books, and fantasy books are so dense and so difficult and challenging to get through. And I think she is doing a great job of keeping me motivated and keeping me engaged with the content, and I'm really enjoying reading it with her. The sixth prompt is read a book published in the last 3 years that fits your reader profile. So after you've been reading on StoryGraph for a while, they give you a reader profile based on the different types of books that you've been reading. And my reader profile is fiction, emotional, reflective, lighthearted, medium-paced, and 300 to 499 pages. So I found a book published in 2022 that fit all of those criteria, which is called Mr. Perfect on Paper by Jean Meltzer. And Jean Meltzer is an author that I specifically want to read more from. I read The Matzo Ball by her because it features a character with my chronic illness condition, and Jean Meltzer also has my chronic illness condition, so I'm really interested in supporting her and reading more by her. Mr. Perfect on Paper specifically talks about a woman who has a list of criteria that this is exactly what a perfect husband would be for her, and of course she meets and falls in love with a man who doesn't fit any of her criteria. If you are planning on participating in the StoryGraph onboarding challenge this year, comment down below what you are planning on reading for it this year. If not, comment down below what your longest book from 2022 was and your longest book that you are planning on reading in 2023 will be. Thank you so very much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.